All right, everybody. Dr. Hill here. We're going to be doing Mounce chapter 6 and 7 vocabulary. So why don't we get on with it? A couple things before we get started. Just a reminder that vocab is listed with the lexical form, the genitive singular form, or the ending, the genitive singular ending, as well as the article. And as we talked about this last week, and you memorize the article, and you are going to let it be your lifeblood. You are going to memorize it. You are going to ingest it. You're going to wake up in the middle of the night screaming out, ha, hey, ta, tu, taste, tu. You're going to, to, te, to, ton, ten, ton, hoi, hi, ta, tone, 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 tois, tais, tois, and then tus, tas, ta. Anyway, there you go. That's the article, and you're going to ingest it such that you can spit it back out. And the reason why is because the article here, at least, the addition of the article tells us what gender the noun is. The stem, the final letter in the stem, tells us what declension it is. And in this case, agape is going to be first declension. And others that end with an omicron are going to be second declension. We'll get to third declension as we move along. But just as we go through, every noun will include the lexical form, the genitive singular ending, and the article. So agape, say agape. Agapes, and it's hey agape. And agape means love, and it is a feminine noun. Okay? So as we go through, and the next thing we're going to see is we have the word alas. Say alas. Alas is not a noun. It is an adjective. And here's one of the things that we want to point out. This omicron at the end is not the article because this is not a noun. Nouns have gender. Adjectives do not have gender. Adjectives can take on whatever gender the noun that they're modifying has. And so in the lexical form, you'll see alas, but you will also see the feminine form, ale, and Allah is the neuter form. So this omicron is not the article, it is the neuter ending. And you can notice that because you've got this dash in front of it. Notice how up here the article does not have a dash in front of it. That's because it's the article. Here with an adjective, you have the masculine form, the feminine form, and the neuter form. So that's something that we'll say a little bit more about as we move along. But alas means other or another. It occurs 155 times. And Mounce has some little interesting footnotes for memorization purposes. And he says that alas, you could remember it because an allegory is a description of one thing using the image of another. If that helps you, then great. If not, find out your other way of memorizing that. But let's go through the vocab and we'll walk through this. So we've got autos, say autos. Autos is the relative or is the pronoun for the third person singular pronoun. Autos, if it's he, if it's she, it's aute, and if it's neuter, it's auta. So this occurs over 5,500 times in the New Testament. We will have it has its own chapter in the book, so we will spend more time on it. But for right now, recognize autos. Is basileia. Say basileia. Notice how our accent is on this diphthong here, and the second letter in the diphthong, basileia, basileia. Genitive singular form, basileas, and it is a feminine noun. Notice that basileia ends with an alpha, which makes it first declension, and our nouns up here, agape, ends in an eta, which is also a first declension noun. All right, both are feminine. Let's do our next one. Basileia means kingdom, and it occurs 162 times, probably mostly with the kingdom talk in the Gospels is where most of this comes. You'll get it a little bit in the letters, but mostly in the Gospels. All right, let's do the next one. De. Say de, which means but or and. There's a couple of interesting things that happen with de. One, you'll see de will oftentimes if it butts up against another word that begins in an adjective, or no, sorry, in a vowel, sorry. So de with a vowel beginning word next, it will the epsilon will drop out, and you'll get this apostrophe, which is what we call an elision. It elides, that epsilon elides out, and you get an apostrophe there. So that is explained here down below. The other thing about the word de is that it's what we call a postpositive. And what that means is that when you see de, it will never, ever, ever, ever be at the very beginning of a sentence. It's never the first word in a sentence in Greek. It will always come second or third or a little bit after the beginning of the sentence spot. But in English translations, we always translate de, but, or and, at the very beginning of the sentence. So that's why it's called a post-positive. It comes later in the sentence, but we always translate it first. And in Greek, it will never be the first word in the sentence. You'll see examples of that as you do the workbook. Let's keep going on. The preposition en, say en. En means in, on, or among. It is probably the most prevalent preposition in the New Testament, and it occurs 2,700 times, quite a bit. So right now, the memorization of the terms that you are doing, the terms you're memorizing, are terms that occur quite a bit. And so memorizing these is going to pay off in the long run. Okay, let's go down to the next one. Here's our next word, ergon. Say ergon. Notice that we accent it at the beginning. There's a smooth breather at the beginning of this. It is a neuter word, ta ergon. So we've memorized nouns that end like apostolos, ends with an omicron sigma, and agape ends in an eta, which tells us that it's probably feminine. Ergon ends with an omicron nu ending, and this is telling us that it is neuter, and also the neuter article at the end will tell us also that it is neuter. So ha is masculine, he is feminine, ta is neuter. This is our first neuter word that we've seen in this chapter. So ergon. Ergon means work or deed or action. We talk about the deeds of the flesh or by works or something like that. That's the word ergon. We can remember ergon because the study of workplace, the physical surroundings of the workplace is ergonomics. And so you talk about what is ergonomically, like ergonomic seats and whatnot. But ergonomics is a study of the space around work. Okay. Let's do the next one. Kairos. Kairos. Kairos is masculine. Ha, kairos. Kairos is one of the words for time. It's different than chronos. Chronos is more about sequential time. Kairos is more about a time or a season or an appointed time or an opportunity. There's a great story in Greek mythology about the person Kairos. And Kairos as a person would have this tuft of hair on the front of his head, but he'd be bald in the back. And the analogy would be when he's coming, if you want to catch him, sometimes he would pass by and people would try to grab the back of his head, but there's no hair because he's bald in the back. And so when opportunity or when Kairos comes, you've got to be ready to grab him by the front of the head. So you've got to be ready for the opportunity. And that's the idea of Kairos. So Kairos means time or appointed time, or opportunity might be another way to think about Kairos. Okay. Our next word, nun. Nun. As an adverb, it means now. As a noun, it means the present. All right, let's keep going. And here's our article, ha. Say ha, or hey, say hey, or ta. And then all the way that declines down. Like I said, ha, hey, ta, tu, taste tu, to, te, to, ton, tain, ta, as well as hoi, hi, ta, the plurals, hoi, hi, ta, ton, 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 tois, tais, tois, and tus, tas, ta. That's it. There's 16 forms of this word. Memorize them, get them into your brain, spit them out like as a reflex. That's what we're looking at trying to do. Notice how often this occurs. 19,000 times in the New Testament. The great thing about the article is sometimes when you don't know the noun that follows it, you don't know whether it's masculine, feminine, or neuter, knowing the article will help you to memorize or to be able to parse what follows it. So the article and the noun will always agree in case, number, and gender. If you know the article, you're going to know the noun. That's good. So ha, he, and ta. All right, our next word. Haughty. Haughty. That, since, or because. You can figure out your own mnemonic device to remember haughty. But haughty is usually at the beginning of a sentence, that, since, or because. Sometimes it will be used as a marker of a direct quotation. And when we would translate, we might put quotation marks in instead of writing that, since, or because. But oftentimes what we're going to see is it is simply that, since, or because. All right, our next word is a negation. There are two negations in the New Testament. The other is may. This one is oo. Say oo. When oo is used, when a word that follows it begins with a consonant, like the example here, udunatai. But when oo is followed by a word with a vowel, it will want to put in a stop, like this kappa, ook. So instead of saying oo eilthon, because that blends together, it will say ook eilthon to differentiate that these are two different words. When the word that follows oo begins with a rough breather, like humes down here, then you will add, then what will show up in the text is an ook. It will add the he onto this. And it would be hemes or humes. Sorry about that. But whether you see oo, ook, or ook, they are the same word and they are a negation. And you would simply translate it as not as a gloss. All right. Hora. Hora is our occasion or moment. Hora is a feminine noun. And hora is often, like in the Gospel of John, Jesus will say, my hour has not yet come, or it might be translated, my time has not yet come. And that is the word hora, my hour has not yet come. So that's chapter 6 vocab. We're going to move over to chapter 7. That's on page 50. So I'm going to crank over there in the textbook here. And 7 vocab. Chapter 7 vocab, and he goes in to talk about what I've already said about the genitive following the lexical form and the vowel. And we'll talk more about the genitive form and why that's important as we go along. But let's hit this vocabulary. Hamartia. Hamartia. Notice that there is a rough breather on hamartia. Hamartia means sin. It is a feminine noun, but that does not mean that sin is a trait, a feminine trait. It's simply that the grammatical gender of the word is feminine. You might remember this because in theology, the study of sin or the doctrine of sin is hamartology or hamartiology. And so you can see hamartia. Our next word is the word arche. Arche. The lexical form is arche. It is feminine. The genitive form is arches. And it can either mean beginning, like the head of something, or ruler, like the head of something. So arche tends to mean the first. So in the Gospel of John, en arche, in the beginning. It's also in the Septuagint in Genesis 1, en arche, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. But also you might hear about a high priest, the archhierus, the archehierus, the head priest or the ruler or something like that. And so thinking about, you might think in English about an arch enemy, a chief enemy, or a head enemy, a first enemy, or an archetype or something like that. So that's a loan word that English has taken on. All right, another word that is another post-positive like de is the word gar. Say gar. 1,000 times it is used in the New Testament. It is also a post-positive. It means for or then, but it will never occur in Greek as the first word of the sentence. it will always occur second or third in the sentence, but we in English will always translate it as the first word of the sentence. Okay, that's gar. Let's go down here to this word, apen. Apen. Now, apen is simply a form of a verb that occurs often. It's not a noun, it's a verb. And because this particular form of this verb occurs so frequently, it deserves memorization for us. We're going to find out that it's actually the aorist form of the verb lego later as we get into verbs. But for right now, in order to do our translation exercises, it will pay off to simply memorize this word as he, she, it said, and it's going to occur so often that it helps us as we do our translations. So you'll meet the lexical form of this word later. Let's keep going on. Another preposition, ace. Ace. Say ace. Ace means into, on, or among. So ace. Our next word, exousia. Exousia. Exousia is a noun. It is a feminine noun. It means authority or power. So all authority, exousia. Okay, we'll go on here. Here's a bit of a longer word for us. Euangelion. Euangelion. You probably recognize here the angel, like angelos, is a messenger. A euangelia or a euangelos is a good, or euangelia is a good message or good news, and is usually translated as gospel. Sometimes I think it's helpful to actually translate this as good message or good news, just to keep it fresh. We get our word evangelism from this, evangelism, so euangelism. It is a neuter noun, and so there we have it, ta euangelion. All right. Here's a proper noun that you'll recognize, perhaps. Jesus. Jesus. Jesus is the word Jesus, or Yeshua, or Joshua, depending on where the context is. But Jesus is the word for Jesus, or the translation of Jesus. And we can get into the name Jesus, and probably in Aramaic, in Hebrew, is Yeshua. It gets Greco-Romanized by adding the US at the end. And so Yeshua becomes Jesus along the way. Okay? Go to our next word, kurios. Kurios. Ha kurios. Lord or master. Sometimes this can be Lord as in Lord. Oftentimes in the Septuagint, this word kurios is translated for the word, the tetragrammaton, the word for Yahweh. And so when it is translated for the tetragrammaton, it is oftentimes used the word kurios. Other places, the word kurios can refer to an English Lord or master or something like that. Here's our second negation, like u and uk, is the word me. Me means not or lest. Has the basic same meaning as u. We're going to talk about why a negation may is used instead of u, and that's usually when you see the subjunctive mood or a non-indicative mood. That doesn't make any sense right now. It will later. Okay? The most strong negation you can have in Greek is when u and me occur together. They form an emphatic negation, no. So like when in the book of Hebrews, when it quotes from the Old Testament, when God says, I will never leave you, I will never forsake you, it is u me, I will never ever leave you. It's emphatic. So u me is a great negation, and it preaches really well because you can be emphatic about it. All right, here's our next word. Uranos. Uranos. Uranos is a masculine noun. It means heaven or sky. Uranos in the plural, the heavens, usually a Jewish way of speaking. You can translate heaven or the heavens. So sometimes it'll say like the heavens were opened, or heaven was opened, or the sky was opened, something like that. So heaven or the stars, or the sky. All right, here's another this is what we call a demonstrative pronoun, hutos, haute, or tuta, and it means this. So hutos is this, haute is this feminine thing, and tuta is this neuter thing. We're going to have a chapter that is devoted to demonstrative pronouns as well, so hang on to that as we go. Su, su, it means you, singular. In English, you can either be singular or plural, but in Greek, su means singular you, and we're going to find a different word that means, humes means plural you, or y'all, if you're from the South. We'll talk about that, and it will have its own chapter. But for now, this will be important as we get into translating. Another word that you'll want to memorize is huios. Huios. Notice this has a rough breather, starts with a diphthong, hui, huios. Huios means son, ha, huios. Means son, descendant, child. Sometimes when huios is used in the plural, huioi, it will imply an inclusive language, children, sons, but it will imply male and female as well. So huios but it is a masculine noun. And then our last word is hosta. Hosta. Notice that we have a rough breather on this omega. Hosta. And it means therefore or so that. So by the end of these 2 chapters, you will have memorized 53 words, 43% of the total word count in the New Testament. You can tell by how much these occur. These are very strategic words to memorize. So that's vocab for chapter 6 and 7. Good studying this week. Get into your workbook, do your work, and hopefully bring your questions to class about the workbook, about the vocab, and we'll talk about it then.